The Vortak had observed humanity for 3 centuries, dismissing them as primitive creatures confined to a single blue marble in space. Their crystalline ships hung in the void beyond Pluto's orbit, invisible to human detection, while their collective intelligence analyzed the species below with growing contempt. They war among themselves, transmitted Nexus Prime, the Vortak's central consciousness. They poison their own atmosphere. They cannot even achieve unity on their homeworld. How could such fragmented beings pose any threat to our galactic dominion? The Vortak were ancient, their silicon-based forms having conquered 47 star systems across the galaxy. Their technology operated on principles humans had barely begun to theorize: quantum consciousness manipulation, reality-warping field generators, and weapons that could destabilize the very fabric of spacetime. To them, humanity represented nothing more than an amusing curiosity, like watching insects build their hills. But Nexus Prime had grown bored with observation. The time had come for what the Vortak called the integration protocol, a systematic absorption of promising species into their collective consciousness. It would be simple: appear over Earth's major cities, demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority, and watch as humanity surrendered within days. The first ships materialized over New York, London, Tokyo, and Moscow simultaneously. Each vessel stretched 3 kilometers in length, their crystalline hulls refracting light into impossible geometric patterns. The mere sight of them caused mass panic as governments scrambled to understand what they faced. Dr. Elena Vasquez, director of the International Deep Space Research Facility in Chile, stared at her screens in horror. "The electromagnetic signatures are off the charts," she reported to the emergency UN assembly. "Whatever these ships are made of, it's manipulating quantum fields on a scale we didn't think was possible." The Vortak's first communication came as a psychic broadcast that penetrated every human mind simultaneously. The message was clear: submit to integration or face annihilation. They offered humanity 7 days to consider their fate. What the Vortak had failed to understand was that humanity's greatest weakness, their inability to unite, was also their most devastating strength. Their chaotic diversity meant they approached problems from thousands of different angles simultaneously, creating solutions that no unified intelligence could anticipate. Commander James Rodriguez of the U.S. Space Defense Initiative worked frantically with Russian physicist Dr. Mikhail Volkov and Indian mathematician Dr. Priya Sharma. Together, they had noticed something the Vortak couldn't have predicted. Their ship's quantum field manipulations were creating microscopic tears in spacetime itself. "They're so advanced they've become careless," Rodriguez muttered as calculations flooded his screens. "They assume we can't detect quantum variance at the Planck scale, but our particle accelerators have been doing it for decades." Meanwhile, across the globe, other teams pursued wildly different approaches. Australian engineers jury-rigged mining lasers into focused beam arrays. Brazilian biochemists synthesized compounds that could theoretically disrupt silicon-based neural networks. Japanese roboticists programmed swarms of nanobots to interfere with crystalline lattice structures. The Vortak watched these scattered efforts with amusement. No single human project posed any threat to their technology. They had faced species with unified military responses before and crushed them easily, but they had never faced organized chaos. When humanity struck back on the 7th day, it wasn't with a coordinated assault but with 17 simultaneous attacks using completely different methodologies. The quantum interference from Rodriguez's team caused reality distortions around the ships. The Australian beam arrays superheated the crystalline hulls beyond their thermal coefficients. The Brazilian compounds, deployed by modified weather satellites, began dissolving the ship's silicon-based control systems. Most devastating of all were the Japanese nanobots, which treated the Vortak ships like computer viruses, not to destroy them, but to replicate their technology and turn it against itself. Nexus Prime experienced something unknown in millennia of conquest: genuine surprise. As their ships began failing across multiple vectors simultaneously, the collective consciousness realized their fatal error. They had prepared for humanity's weaknesses but never considered that those same weaknesses could become weapons. The last transmission from the dying Vortak fleet carried a note of respect. "We understand now why you remain unconquered. Your chaos is your strength." By dawn, the crystalline ships were gone, leaving behind only quantum signatures and a humbling lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one that cannot predict its own next move.